Hey y'all, I'm back. So today we're going to do something a little interesting, a little new, but before we start, let me tell you a story. It's story time. So a little while back, the three of us being my sister, me, and my mom, the three of us, we all picked up our little selves and drove to that great store known as the Hobby Lobby where all dreams come true. And my sister picked out 5 items for me to create into any random craft I wanted. So, let me show you what I got. So the first thing, come on in here, buddy.
I'm a fruit.
So the first thing we have is this odd looking fruit. It's got a stem on the top and a weird belly button on the bottom.
Innie or an
Outie.
So that's odd. Then we have some of this wool roving stuff that's used for knitting, but I don't knit. Now we have some Skittles. No, I'm joking. They're frill toothpicks because we're extra and we have to have that extra bling. Next we have some acrylic beads. Ooh, shivers. And last but not least, we have a fake plant that looks like it's the top to a pineapple. So let's start by removing that stem. Wow, that got violent. Next, we're going to take a pair of scissors and just trim off all those little excess frills and pieces we don't want. Now comes the part where we're going to start painting. So let's take our white paint and mix it up. Mix, mix, mix. Yummy, yummy. So I actually decided to change paints. I didn't like how weirdly thick the other stuff was, so I just changed to another cheap acrylic paint you can buy in like any craft store. This is just going to be used as a base coat for the other paint we're going to use. The only reason I'm doing this is so that the undercolor of the pear doesn't shine through when we put on our top coat of paint. So now we're doing coat number 2 just to help give a nice base layer for our top coat. But we kind of have an issue that comes up. So this happened.
Child, where are your clothes?
So, yeah, this happened. The reason this happened is because the pear is so daggone smooth, it won't hold paint. So what I did was I took some sandpaper and just roughed it up a bit and gave the surface a little more texture, just made it more uneven so the paint had something to actually grab onto and stick to. This actually worked pretty well. It wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Now we're just going to reapply our white paint base after our little incident, and it worked. It ended up staying this time and didn't chip off or flake. We have the entire white base layer painted on. Looks kind of like a giant white booger right now. Ew. Now it is time to mix up our paint. I'm just going to mix together some white and some green. I didn't know what color to do for this bird. I thought about it for a very long time being like 15 minutes. But you know, I decided to go with green just because I think it'll work well with the overall look we're going for. So now we're going to start painting on this green. I don't think I've told you this yet, but we're going to be making this into a bird. So instead of a blue bird, he's going to be a green bird. And so, that's just the way he is. It's in style and fashion. Don't judge him. Now we are going to finish painting him with a popsicle stick.
You don't know what you're doing. You're so stupid.
Give me a minute to explain. So the reason I'm using the popsicle stick is because when you use a paintbrush, it just smears it on in these thin layers and it takes forever to get the coverage you want. So with a popsicle stick, it's just easier to get on all of the layers you want with less time. So I'm not using it because I'm incompetent, I'm using it because it is faster. So now that our pear bird is all done, I'm going to add a thin layer of Mod Podge, which is just a liquid protector that helps it from chipping and flaking and generally falling apart. Now, it kind of looks like a spider. Time to work on the pineapple topper, I mean the fake plant. So all I'm going to do is paint this with just a darker green straight from the bottle. This is going to actually end up being the bird's tail. I'm going to just snip off lots of different pieces and then glue them on. I'm not going to just smack that onto his butt because that would be rude, right? Right. Now comes the cutting time. We're going to quickly snip off this stem because it's not needed. Then we're going to just cut off little bits of the plant to create the plume of his tail so that he can be a lush, lavish bird. That's all done. We're going to take all the little pieces and just glue them on with a hot glue gun onto the back of him so that we can create the plume of his tail so that he's not boring, because right now he's kind of boring. Now that that's all done, we're going to just take our scissors and just clean him up a little bit, make him look a little nicer, and just even things out so that he's not such a mess. So he's looking a little bald, so we're going to give some headwear.
A mushroom!
No, I'm kidding. So we're just going to give him a little hat to protect his little head, so we're going to mix some white paint, mix up this container of this yellow paint, add that in. We're going to add a little bit of orange in there too. Mix that all up until we have a nice tannish orangish color. Add a little more yellow because it's a little bit too dark. And then just start painting it on there like you did with the bird. This one was a little bit harder because there was all those cracks and crevices to get into, so you just had to get the paintbrush up in there sometimes. The hat didn't come out as perfectly beautiful as I wanted it to, but you know what? You can't always have perfection, you know, it's just life. But I still think it came out pretty well. I put about 5 coats in the end on this one. I don't show all the coats I do just for time constraints. Now that that's all finished, we're going to take our hot glue gun, put a little bit around the rim and on the inside, and we're just going to pat that onto his little head, position it where you want to, and then hold it to dry just so that doesn't fall off. And there we go. Am I the only one, or does he look kind of like a watermelon?
Are you calling me fat?
No, you're okay. You look beautiful. It's time to paint on his little eyes because he's looking a little lifeless right now. So I'm just mixing some black paint with some white paint just to get a little bit lighter of a color. Now let's start painting those on. Wipe off his eyeball. You got a little something on your face. Try that again, eyeball 2.0. This one went on better this time. We're just going to put one on each side like eyeballs should be because that's the way eyeballs are. So now that that's all done, we're going to start working on his wings. So again, we're just going to mix some green and some white. We're going to make it a little bit darker than the base color for his body, just so you can actually see his wings, and so they're not the exact same color as his body. Now we're using a paintbrush to outline it, and then going to grab the popsicle stick to fill it in, just so that it's easier to get that nice full coverage we want. So now that that's all done,
Are you okay?
yeah, I forgot to record the black outline. So now that's all done, we're going to work on his pupils.
Stop touching my eyeball.
That's dry. So now we're going to add just a little highlights here and there and a nice pupil. And I decided I didn't like this, so I ended up wiping it off. So I'm just going to fill that back in with black paint because I screwed up. And now we're going to re-add the white pupils. You weren't supposed to see that. Oh well, it's okay. I'll show you how to do that later. And we're just filling in the white pupils and the highlights, making it look nice and cute. There we go. So now it's time to actually work on that beak. So all we're going to do is take a small amount of clay, roll it into a ball, and then shape it into a basic beak shape. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to, fit the shape that you want. And, oh, yep, that's what I thought was perfect. So now it's time to paint this a nice orange color.
That's obviously coral.
Yes, I know it's not a perfect orange color. It's a little more pink than I was hoping, but it still does the job just fine. So now we're going to add on his cute little bird smile with a little black paint. I'm using a toothpick to do this. That worked the best, I think. And we don't want him to be emotionless. Now we're going to add on his 2 little bitty nostril holes. And there we go. Now that that's dry, we're going to glue that onto his face. Position it where you wanted to. Don't make him look too awkward. Yep. Okay. There we go. But he still needs something, so I'm going to use some of this matte Mod Podge again just to cover up the rest of his face and his beak and his wings, just again so that it doesn't get chipped or cracked. So now he needs a little bow tie glued on.
That is so boring. You're not even going to do anything with it. You're so boring.
Okay, that's the last time I'm going to do that. Yes, I know it's not very creative, but I couldn't think of anything else to do with it, so that's what I did. And here we go. I think he's so cute and adorable. But wait. He needs a friend. So we're going to make him a little nest to live in because he's cold. We're going to use the wool roving and the toothpicks. Just get off that excess. There you go. Now we're going to decapitate all of these toothpicks. Well, by all, I mean some of them. We're going to decapitate some of these toothpicks so that we don't have all that frill on top. Now I'm cutting the toothpicks in half just to make them more manageable and easier to use when we're trying to make the nest. So now we're going to take our hot glue gun.
Don't hurt me, I'm innocent.
Oh my gosh. So now we're going to take the hot glue gun and we're going to connect all these pieces into a shape. I just did kind of a random geometric shape. You can do whatever shape you want, it doesn't really matter. It just has to be connected at both ends and secure enough to be able to hold your whole nest up. Now it's time to add the sides to this nest. So I'm taking one piece of the toothpick and gluing it onto each one of the corners so we can create the sides and then add the top to our nest. It fits, yup, perfect. So now it's time to add the top to the nest. So all you're gonna do is, again, take little pieces of toothpick and glue them onto all the tops of the edge pieces so we can have one large top piece. So I ended up running out of toothpicks, so I had to defill more, cut those in half, and then we had more to work with. Now we're just adding little joints to all the sides, just so we can have something to work with to weave our wool through. Now we're going to glue some onto the bottom, so we can have a bottom, so that his bottom is warm. Okay, so now it is time to make this hunk of wood look like a nest. So all I'm doing is taking pieces of the wool roving and weaving it in and out of the toothpicks, making sure to cover up all the toothpicks as I go, leaving some of it exposed just to make it look like wood, but covering up the majority of it. Now I'm covering up the top with a thick layer of roving just to cover up all those toothpicks. Now comes the time to cover up all the cracks.
So indecent.
Taking a little bit of hot glue just to seal up the cracks and crevices in the nest. Now it's looking a little bit plain, so I'm going to add a few of those frill tops on just to give it a little more panache and pizzazz and a little more fun, you know. So we're going to add one right there, and maybe one right there, and one right there, and why not put one right there? And here it is. Is it perfect? No. Is it a little bit rough around the edges? Well, I'll let you be the judge. But that's okay. Now, I think it's time for Mr. Bird to move in. Aw, he likes it. Oh. Nope, come back, come back, come back. And here it is. I think it came out well. What do you guys think? I think for someone who doesn't have much painting experience or experience making crafts in general, I think I did a pretty good job on it, and I'm actually proud of this, to be honest. Well, that's all I have for you guys this week. I hope you enjoyed, and remember, stay tasty.